Hello, Carrie Rhoades here with Carrie Stamps. Thank you for coming back to my YouTube channel for another video. In today's video, there's kind of a lot going on. I am creating a shaker card that all started with a trip to Target. I don't know if you get distracted in things in your life, but the dollar spot at Target is one of those things that distracts me from what I'm supposed to be doing. So while at the dollar spot, I found some sand. And the sand is for making fairy houses, and it comes in this little thing like this, and it's $1. So I had to get it because I recently made a purchase of a super cool die set from Honeybee, the Seashell Card die. And so the idea came to me that I needed to make a shaker card with sand. But the background that I happen to be using on this shaker card is a background that I created in another video on my Facebook Live to use Distress Oxide on the gel press. And then I made those into tags. So I'm kind of going to be showing you multiple things today, but like the main thing I wanted to show you was the shaker card. But you also get 2 other ideas in there with the gel press idea, and I'm going to show you the main way that this die set works to make a seashell shaped card. So I'm going to show you that too. So it's kind of a lot. It's super fun and I love how it turned out. So I think we should go ahead and get stamping. So we're going to start off today's video making some backgrounds using Distress Oxide ink. I have Peacock Feathers, Salty Ocean, and Dusty Concord. And on this gel press, I'm going to lay down the Artful Wall Stencil by FSJ. The great thing about stenciling using a gel press is that a stencil will cling to the gel press itself. So you don't have to worry about ink getting underneath it. You don't have to worry about taping it down. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to take one color at a time and just press the stamp pad right down over the top of the stencil. And I will do all 3 of the colors, just pressing it over the top of that stencil. Then I'm going to take the Salty Ocean and fill in some of these gaps. So just 3 colors that I thought would work really well for a mermaid sea type theme. And of course there's lots of good choices in the Distress Oxides for that. And then I'm just using like the edge of the stamp pad to come in and fill in some gaps. Now the look I'm going for today is not to get the exact crisp, clean impression of this stencil at all. I really want a flowy, watery scene. Now I'm spritzing it with water from my distress sprayer. I'm going to carefully remove the stencil. Look at that. And then I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock and lay this onto my gel press to pick up that print. Just press and rub and look at that. So watery and loose, and we've got that great Distress Oxide texture on there that's a little chalky, super fun. So now after we're done making this print, we still have ink on the gel press. So I'm going to spray that and pick up a second print. And every time you make a print on the gel press, it's different, which is why it's called mono printing. So this one is much more subtle, much lighter, and you could add to this, you could keep it how it is. It's also very watery and flowy and gorgeous. I love it. All right, so I'm going to bring back that stencil because the top of it was coated with ink and sprayed with water, so we should be able to pick up a print off of that. That's pretty cool. And we've only inked everything 1 time so far, but yet we've made 3 prints. So that's pretty cool. Got a lot more detail in this one, but still that splattery look. Pretty fun. All right, so now we're going to remove the stencil and just go direct to the gel press. And I have to say, smacking the stamp pad down on the gel press is quite satisfying. All right, same 3 colors as before. And again, using the edge of the pad to kind of fill in some open spaces, but I'm not going to brayer this out or anything because I'm not looking for 100% coverage, but I am generously spraying that with my distress sprayer. Now, obviously you can see when I pick up this print, I'm going to get some pretty defined shapes, but that's okay because of the look I'm going for, I'm going to be die cutting these and making card fronts from them. So those kind of squares in there look pretty cool. But now we have still more ink to pick up, so we can pick up a second print, and I'm pretty sure this one's my favorite. And then I just laid it down and went back and picked up more and more and layered it up, and that is the print. So here's all the prints that I made, and I'm going to show you real quick how I made some gift tags using that Honeybee Seashell stamp die set. Of course, I need to clean up my glass mat before bringing in all the things. So I'm going to be using the solid, or the biggest die really, that cuts out a card. So you can fold this in half and make a card. I will show you that later on in this video, but for the time being, I'm going to actually cut it in half for the project I'm going to be making next. So then I'm going to use the background, one of the backgrounds that I made, and die cut a piece that's going to go on top of that. So I love using a die on my gel press prints and just like scooting it around and kind of figuring out the best spot to die cut my background. So I'm just going to cut that off so I can run it through my platinum machine and die cut this cool flowy watery background. So we're going to sandwich it between the plates, and we'll crank that out and have a nice background. And there we have it. Love the seashell die. All right, so I've got a few of the seashell backgrounds here that I die cut from our gel press prints, and we're going to be stamping that. But first I decided I would cut out one of the little circles from that same die set from Honeybee, and that's going to be like my oyster. So I'm just using my prism machine because it's just a little guy. You can bring it in real quick and die cut tiny things. So that's going to be the like little oyster pearl that I'm going to put on the inside, or the back side actually, because it's going to be a tag. And then I'm going to stamp using the Mermaid Kisses stamp set, which I will be using for all the projects today from FSJ. So I'm going to ink that up with clear pigment ink and emboss it. I almost forgot to treat my paper with my anti-static tool, but I caught it in time, and then ink it up with the clear pigment ink. And then we will go ahead and emboss that with black powder. So it'll really show up on top of that background. So once we get the excess powder off, we'll heat that up to melt the powder. Get your heat gun nice and hot before you go ahead and emboss. Get that all melted, and I love how it's shiny and raised up on top of that background. So cool. Just a kind of fun way to use this set without having to color it in. I'm going to splatter this with some silk, and this is the Cool Pool silk, so you just want to shake it up to get all that shimmer mixed in with the liquid, and the splatter on this that's got that metallic shine, magical. This is the Cosmic Grape silk, and the little touch of purple was really needed on this particular background, so it really pops. There we have it. So we'll just let that dry for a second and bring back this piece that is supposed to be a card, but like I said, I'm going to go ahead and cut it right on that score line because I want to make a bunch of tags. These tags were actually the party favor gift that went in with my happy stamping box for the month of February. Then I'm going to stamp this with a stamp from Impression Obsession, which says "The world is your oyster." And I'm going to use that dusty Concord Distress Oxide ink because when you stamp with Distress Oxide ink on colored cardstock, it shows up. I have purple ink on teal paper. I love it. So that is going to take a little bit of time to dry since Distress Oxide ink has pigment properties in it. And I can stick on my little pearl there and put it right by the R in oyster die cut from one of my backgrounds. And then we're going to put all of this together. We'll glue that background right onto the front of that seashell. So it doesn't open, it's just going to be a gift tag, and the silks should be dry by now. They really don't take that long. So I gave it enough time, I feel, and we can stick that down. And once that is secure and in place, I'm going to add a piece of ribbon. So this is Cool Pool satin ribbon. I love this color. It's a super thick ribbon, and actually on some of my tags I decided to use some twine, and I used black to go with the black embossing, and that way you have a little bit smaller ribbon option so that you could like tie it onto a gift bag is my thinking. So I liked both. Just depends on, you know, who you're giving it to, what you're sticking it on, but you could use a twine option as well. So trim off those ends, and then you can, oh, look at how cute, a little seashell with a bow. And here's a few others I made with other backgrounds. I love these. Some of these I just got the gel press like super wet, and the ink really flowed on them. So there's that. I hope you've enjoyed it. And now let's move on to our seashell shaker card. But first I want to show you the card that you can, or a card you can make using the main die, the biggest die from this die set. It is so fun to have a seashell shaped card. I have a watercolored Distress Oxide background, and that detailed die I put over the top of it with glitter paper. Now here's that sand. That's $1, if I didn't already mention that. And I just thought, oh my gosh, it's the perfect shaker filling. So I'm going to bring in one of those Distress Oxide videos that I showed you how to make with the gel press. And we're going to die cut a window in this using this solid seashell die. And I'm going to tape that in place towards the top of the background so that it will be nice and secure and not move around through the die cut machine. So we will die cut that. All right, I want to cover the back of this with a piece of white liner sheet. It's adhesive sheets. I'm going to die cut that with the same die, and I do realize that I could have stuck this to the back of the background and die cut them at the same time, you know, but I realize that now and not beforehand. So here we go. We'll stick that down now that it's die cut. I'm going to bring in the detailed die and die cut this. And now, with the help of technology, I am going to very quickly weed out all of those excess pieces and save them for use on a possible future project. So those just pop right out, but then my super delicate seashell frame is nice and sticky on the back. So once that is weeded out, I'm going to set it aside and use my background as the front of my card and the window into my shaker card. So that means I need to line this with a piece of window sheet. So I have my 1/8 of an inch score tape, and I'm going to just outline, so to speak, the seashell window with that. I needed the super fine tape because the edges are really thin on the sides, so therefore the 1/8 of an inch is the perfect size. Now I'll just remove that release paper off the back, and I have a piece of Clearview sheet that is 4 by 4 to fit over the back of this, and you know, if I lined it up it would fit really well, but some of it hung off the edge, so I'm just going to use my scissors to trim that right off, and it'll be good to go and be a great window for the front of this card. So now I can come back and get that really detailed piece and remove the release paper on the back, and then I've got a matching background on this detailed piece, and because of that Clearview sheet on the back, it's going to stick down beautifully to my window. So the next step is to apply the double stick tape to the back. So I already have a bunch of this Scotch 3M tape ready to go, but I thought I'd show you how I create it. So I just fold it over on itself, cut off a piece, and then I can cut that into strips that will fit around my window. I want to create a reservoir so none of that sand can escape. And I am pretty meticulous about this, so I have sped it up a great deal, just cutting strips that fit snugly, that fit the edges nicely, and then I will be sure that none of that sand will escape. And I'm also putting some strips down at the bottom so that I don't have like a loose or flappy piece there, and it'll be a secure and sturdy front for my card. And once that is done, we will be able to work on filling it with sand. So I have a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock in 110 pounds. That will be my card base. And I'm creasing the fold there, and I'm going to put the sand right down onto my card front. So I like to use like a little baby spoon that I get from Baskin Robbins, the little sample spoon, to do this. And I decided I would go ahead and tape the card closed so that it laid flat and my sand couldn't escape. So you see, I'm just going to put, I think like 5.5 scoops. Like there's so much in here that I don't feel bad putting a ton in. It's a huge shaker window. And I thought a lot of sand is going to look fabulous in there. So then I'm flattening it out, and what I want is for it to not be too thick of a pile for my window. And then I'll go ahead and remove the backing on all of these strips that I put down. And I had just some little shavings that I'm getting off with the scissors there. And it will sit more securely if you go ahead and remove those little pieces. So there we go. And now when we put this down, we just want to make sure that we have an even border of the card all the way around, or you could make this background panel the size of your card. But I have a little border all the way around. So I'm going to press that down, and then I have an amazing shaker card with sand in it. It just makes me so happy. Like the only way I would be happier with this is if I had collected the sand from the beach in Cancun or something. But I love it. So now we're going to stamp. Again, I'm using the Mermaid Kisses stamp set, and I'm going to use that same mermaid and then Sweet Hello for my sentiment. So I'm going to stamp her down onto a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I am going to be coloring this in with watercolor pencils. So I'm using black licorice ink from FSJ. Press and hold that to get a nice crisp image. And then I'll bring in my watercolor pencils that are from Arteza. I'm looking for a quick and easy way for coloring for people who come to my stamp studio for classes. So this is one of the ways that we're going to be using in classes to color with watercolor pencils and then blend them out with a blender pen. So if you're not a colorist, or if you're at my class to learn how to make backgrounds, then you can easily whip out the watercolor pencils, blend it out with a brush, and not have to worry about, you know, like really nice coloring. This is like the fast and easy way to do coloring. So I'm using 2 shades of purple. So if you want to know the exact names, the color I'm starting with there is Lilac, which is number A062. And then I will come over the top of that and add in a little bit darker shade with pencil A086, and that one's Eggplant. And then I'll be able to blend those out with a blender pen that is by Tombow. It's like a marker with no color in it. And so if you have those like scratchy pencil lines because you're not coloring slow and taking your time, this will blend those out. And there's nothing wrong with coloring that way. Sometimes you're in a hurry and sometimes you want to just color this real quick and be done. And not everybody is loving coloring. You know, I love it. I want to take my time and sit for hours and color all the things, but not everybody feels that way. And if you're one of those people, maybe watercolor pencils with a blender pen is going to be the solution for you, because you can still get those light and dark areas without a lot of effort, without a lot of stress. So that's what I'm going for here. And one of my customers at one of my recent classes that we used this stamp set on, she was showing me how she likes to do it. Just kind of really fast and like scribble on some watercolor pencil and then blend it out with a marker. So I'm going to be having all of that stuff available for her and anybody else that wants to color quickly. So that's what I'm doing here. I am going to speed the rest of this up for the coloring, but I will put the pencil names up on the screen for you. All right, we are now going to die cut out our colored mermaid with the coordinating die set. And I'm also going to die cut out a piece of glitter cardstock that already has adhesive on the back that's going to be the pearl for this card. I noticed when I got my mermaid out of the die that I didn't quite get the die on there very even, so I had a lot more white edge on the right side. So I just trimmed a little of that down with my scissors so it wasn't so obvious. A little way to fix that if that ever happens to you. Now I'm going to stamp a sentiment, the Sweet Hello sentiment from the Mermaid Kisses stamp set, and I'm going to ink that up with the same Distress Oxide ink, Dusty Concord. Then I remembered I am going to emboss this, so I went ahead and treated it with my anti-static powder bag. And then I'll stamp that with the Dusty Concord, and I'm embossing this with Silver Pearl embossing powder by Ranger. So it's going to pearlize my stamped image. It's very cool powder, and I think it looks great with the two different shades of purple. So we'll shake off the excess and go ahead and heat that up. And this gives it a really cool pearl look. It lightens up that ink color a little bit, but some of the purple still shows through. Gorgeous. So we're going to glue that down to our card front, and it's not going all the way across, but that's okay because the mermaid is going to overlap the end of it. So it was actually just the right size scrap I found in my stash. That is pretty amethyst paper. Then I'm going to go ahead and mount the mermaid onto the card. Don't worry, I'm not going to skimp on foam squares. I don't do that, so I can put your mind at ease there. We'll get some little half pieces on her arm, so that's not, you know, flapping in the breeze. I cannot have that. And then I'm going to remove all the backers. I thought I'd show you my cute little bowl that my friend Lori got me. I like to just peel them off and stick them in the ceramic bowl. It really seems like they cling to that, and I don't know, it just is magical. Look how cute it is. But then of course the last one didn't want to go in the bowl. But anyways, it works really good for collecting those, and then I can just dump them into my trash. So we've got our mermaid on the card now, and I want to put this pearl that I die cut from glittered cardstock in her hand. So right next to her hand, I put a little foam square, and then I'm going to peel the backing off of my glitter paper and then press that down onto her hand. So she's got a pearl there. And then I'm going to bring in some other pearl accents, and I will add a few of those to just be a little accessory on this card. So you kind of get the idea of what she's holding in her hand. So just 3 pearls there, and that finishes off the look, but I wanted her to have a little bit of shimmer added to her, so I brought in my clear Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to brush that onto her hair, like kind of coloring each strand of hair. And with watercolor pencils you want to be careful because it can blend that pencil out. And then I loved it so much I colored her top and then added some to her tail, because once you start with the Wink of Stella, it's really hard to stop. And then I'm just making a few scallops on her tail to accent those, and it just makes all the difference. Really makes her kind of like the center or focal point, although that sand is kind of the special part of the card. So there you have it. She's all colored, and we'll just let her dry. And then, oh, there's one more thing I wanted to add, and that's on top of that pearl, I'm going to add some glaze. So I'm just covering that whole entire pearl with some journey glaze, and that'll make it be nice and shiny and have some dimension to it. But you can still see the glitter through it once it dries, so that's pretty cool. And that is the finished card with all the things. The Distress Oxide Gel Press background, the shaker sand part. It's amazing. I love it. I wanted to make sure that you could hear the sound of the sand moving around in the shaker, because for some reason it reminds me of the ocean. Listen to this. Thank you so much for watching and letting me share the fun of the seashell die from Honeybee with you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. And if you are interested in the supplies I used to make these projects, there is a link to them as well as my blog post in the description below. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here to help you, and I just enjoy stamping and creating and inspiring you. So I hope that you will be ready to create and make something fun. Happy stamping! Bye!